After the car accident gave me amnesia, everyone told me I had a billionaire CEO for a wife. But I'd been lying in this hospital room for 3 days and 3 nights without a single visitor. Her assistant, Jessica, rushed in to explain. Sir, Ms. Walker cares about you deeply. The day you were admitted, she chartered a private jet and flew back from overseas immediately. She only went to the office after confirming you had no external or internal injuries. I just gave a flat "oh." Since I wasn't there to see it, she could spin whatever story she wanted. A superficial wife who hadn't visited, called, or even texted me in 3 days was being painted as some hopelessly devoted romantic. I'd have an easier time believing I was Julius Caesar. Jessica watched as I closed my eyes, ready to sleep, and the rest of her prepared speech died on her lips. He doesn't seem to believe me, she thought. But everything I said was true. The boss was so worried about him. It's just, I have no idea why she won't come to the hospital to see him. Jessica sighed silently and backed out of the room. As she turned, she saw her boss standing right there. She's here, so why isn't she going in to see him? Jessica was starting to think that the frantic, panicked Chloe she'd seen rushing into the hospital on the day of my accident had been an illusion. How is he? How is he? How was she supposed to answer that? Jessica racked her brain, and finally, as her boss's expression grew stormier, she managed to choke out, "He's been very quiet, ma'am." Chloe somehow understood the subtext and paused, a flicker of surprise on her face. He hasn't cried? No. She had previously instructed Jessica to call her the moment I started crying. Clearly, she was ready and waiting for the chance to come and comfort me. But now I had amnesia. She wouldn't even get the opportunity. But you don't have to wait for him to cry to comfort him, do you? Jessica didn't dare say this out loud. She just watched Chloe stare at the closed door, muttering to herself, "He's that angry." Hearing this, Jessica mentally rolled her eyes. On their 3rd wedding anniversary, you flew overseas to be with his brother, and you wonder why he's angry. If it weren't for that, he wouldn't have been driving distracted after a sleepless night, crashed into his own garage, and given himself a concussion. This is all you're doing. Chloe stood in silence for a moment before turning and slipping into an adjacent room. After a brief hesitation, she finally dialed a number. "Chloe, did you manage to calm Ethan down?" Chloe sounded lost. "No, he didn't cry. Look, Ethan's accident and coma must have really scared him. And even if faking amnesia is a bit much, you still need to smooth things over. He's not crying, so how do I comfort him?" Chloe recalled how it always went. I would cry. She would hold me, whispering, "Don't cry, Ethan," and I would cry into her shoulder for a bit, and then everything would be okay. But now I wasn't crying, so what was she supposed to do? "And Olivia, those gifts you told me to buy, he hasn't opened a single one. I don't think he likes it when I give him presents. I can't believe you're my sister." Making a man cry out of sheer frustration is a special talent. I'll give you that. And for the record, you can comfort your husband even when he's not crying. The point is to clear up the misunderstanding. 20 minutes later, Chloe put her phone away and stepped out of the adjacent room. She stared at the door to my room, just past Jessica, paused for a long moment, and then pushed it open and went inside. She knew exactly why I was angry, and she had never loved anyone else. I wasn't actually asleep. Someone was on the phone in the next room, and even though their voice was low, it was just loud enough to keep me awake. The call finally ended, only for someone else to enter my room. It wasn't Jessica, but a stunning woman with an icy demeanor. "Who are you?" I asked, looking at her as if she were a total stranger. Seeing the lack of recognition in my eyes, Chloe's composure cracked with a hint of panic. She rushed to my bedside and gripped my hand tightly. Ethan, there's nothing going on with Dylan. I only love you." So, this was her, Chloe Walker, the CEO of Walker Enterprises from all the trending news. My superficial wife. She was good at putting on a show, managing to squeeze tears from her eyes despite her cold expression. But she couldn't possibly think I'd believe her, could she? Since I woke up, she hadn't come to the hospital for 3 days, hadn't called once, hadn't sent a single text. Instead, news about her and that Dylan guy was all over Twitter. Did she think I was completely cut off from the world in here? I slowly pulled my hand from her grasp. "The doctor must have told you I have amnesia, so you can drop the act. I don't remember you, I don't remember Dylan, and I certainly don't remember how you two got together." At that, Chloe's hand shot out and grabbed mine again, her grip firm. "Ethan, I've only ever loved you, from the very beginning. There is absolutely nothing between Dylan and me. And how would you prove that? Want me to put it to the test? Or maybe it is innocent between you two, because he's your first love, the one you wouldn't dare touch." "Ethan, that's enough. Get out," I said, my expression hardening as I violently threw her hand off me. Chloe froze, stunned. In 3 years of marriage, I had never been like this with her. Before, whenever I looked at her, my eyes would light up. Could Ethan really have amnesia? No, I don't believe it. Chloe's gaze drifted, finally settling on my lips. I used to love her lips. They were so soft, so sweet. Every time she kissed me, I'd get an erection I couldn't hide. Chloe raised a hand to the back of my head, planting her other on the bed behind me, trapping me completely. Then, she leaned in and pressed her lips against mine. A unique perfume filled my senses, but all I could think was, she's so skilled at this. Has she kissed other people like this? Like Dylan, my supposed brother from all the Twitter drama? As Chloe started to get lost in the kiss, I shoved her away with all my might and slapped her hard across the face. The impact was so strong it made my entire hand go numb. Chloe was the golden child, born to privilege. Ever since she took control of Walker Enterprises, no one had dared to even raise their voice to her, let alone slap her. And I was the gentle one, always compliant throughout our 3-year marriage. Now, over a single kiss, I had landed a solid slap on her face. Chloe stared at me, her eyes burning, but for the first time, I, the mild-mannered one, wasn't intimidated. I even pulled a tissue from the bedside table and slowly, deliberately, wiped my mouth. Seeing my look of disgust, her heart shattered. He's disgusted by me. He's actually disgusted by me. No, I can't have him be disgusted by me. Once I finished wiping my mouth, I raised a finger and pointed to the door. Get the hell out. Seeing I was serious, real panic set in for Chloe. She didn't remember how she got out of the room, only that under my cold stare, she didn't dare stay a second longer, terrified I would despise her even more. After Chloe left, my anger grew until I couldn't stand it. I got out of bed, went to the bathroom, and brushed my teeth with furious intensity. Back in bed, I opened my phone and searched for any information about my 3-year marriage to Chloe, but came up with nothing. Even the trending Twitter topics from the past 3 days had vanished completely. Her team worked fast, scrubbing everything clean. I thought, seething. Just then, I noticed I could switch between 2 accounts on my phone. I immediately switched to the alternate one and found a series of private, only me posts that made my chest ache until I could barely breathe. Wedding night. Today is my wedding night with Chloe. I never imagined she would actually marry me, but she got a call from Dylan and left. February. It's been a month. Chloe doesn't seem interested in that. I don't understand why she married me. March. Chloe took me to the hospital for a blood test. The doctor said I was perfectly healthy, and I saw her let out a huge sigh of relief. In that moment, I suddenly believed what Dylan had told me. She only married me for my blood. April. Went back to the Andersons today. Dylan asked if anything had happened between us yet. I guess she must have told him. May. What do I do? I still love her. She's quiet and seems cold, but she's decent to me. After 20 years of being the Anderson family's personal blood bank, she's the kindest person I've known, even if she's only with me for my blood too. January. Year 2, our anniversary. She kissed me first. My heart almost beat out of my chest. But then Dylan called, and she left again. July. Year 2. She's been kissing me more often, but that's still as far as it goes. Year 3. It's our 3rd year of marriage. I think I'm getting sick. Every time she and Dylan are trending on Twitter, every time Dylan sends me a picture of them together, I just want to cry. She came home late one night and I just started sobbing uncontrollably. It startled her, and she held me tight, repeating, "Ethan, don't cry." For a second, I felt like maybe she did care. June. Year 3. I cry all the time now. She doesn't seem to mind. She always comforts me. I feel disgusting. I know I'm using tears as a weapon to test her, to keep her from leaving. I'm so tired. I wish I'd just go blind so I'd never have to see another picture of her and Dylan trending online. My eyes burned as I stared at the last post my past self had written a week ago. Maybe it's time for it all to just end. I thought about the car crash, and my heart nearly stopped. I spent the entire day piecing together my past from that secret account. It was only then that I truly understood. My marriage to Chloe was a complete sham. Beyond that, I learned I was the eldest son of the Anderson family. I was born just 5 minutes before my twin, Dylan. Dylan had been frail since birth and was diagnosed with aplastic anemia at age 1, needing constant blood transfusions to manage his illness. As it happened, both Dylan and I had the same rare, Rh-negative blood type. And since I was perfectly healthy, I became his personal blood bank. My mother couldn't have any more children after Dylan and me, so we had no younger brothers, only 3 older sisters. But because Dylan was the sickly youngest boy, our 3 sisters doted on him exclusively. As for me, I was just an extra in the Anderson family, my only purpose to serve as Dylan's living blood donor. With that thought, I opened my contacts and, one by one, blocked every single one of them. From this day forward, I was living for myself. No one was ever taking another drop of my blood again. After clearing out my phone's contacts, I moved on to iMessage. The first to go was the pinned chat, Ms. Walker. Next were all my so-called family members. Before deleting them, I scrolled through the chat histories, seeing my past self acting like a complete doormat, fawning over my parents and sisters, at their beck and call, running their errands, even sending them money. I raised my hand and slapped myself hard across the face. The old me was just pathetic. I couldn't even stand to look at him. Finally, I calmly wiped my iMessage clean, leaving only one contact, a guy named Jake. The last conversation I'd had with this Jake guy was him tearing into me, calling me a love-struck idiot, a punching bag, telling me I'd completely lost myself over a woman. I stared at the screen for a moment, and a small smile finally touched my lips. The old me wasn't a total loser, at least he had one real friend. Walker Enterprises. Olivia Walker hurried into the CEO's office to find her sister looking utterly miserable. Chloe, what is going on? What do you mean Ethan slapped you? There's no way he would ever hit you. Chloe's skin was pale, and I had put all my strength into that slap. When she turned her head, Olivia gasped. He really did hit you. That's a perfect handprint. Is Ethan really, truly suffering from amnesia? Still, he wouldn't just hit. Wait a minute. Chloe, you didn't try to force a kiss on him, did you? Knowing her sister, Olivia figured she wouldn't just accept the amnesia story and would try something like that to call his bluff. The problem was, I really did have amnesia. Olivia, however, was oblivious to the disaster brewing for her sister, treating the whole thing like a funny marital spat. Chloe raised a hand to her aching chest, her expression lost. Olivia, he hates me. Even with amnesia, why would he hate me? He loved me. He used to wait for me to come home every day, make me soup from scratch and watch me finish every drop. We fell asleep in each other's arms every night. We were happy. Olivia couldn't make sense of it either. She thought for a moment. The amnesia is probably temporary, right? What did the doctors say? They said, his memory should come back. That's right, he'll get his memory back. At this thought, Chloe relaxed slightly. Then he'll be my gentle Ethan again, the Ethan who loves my kisses and loves when I comfort him. And once he's fully recovered, we can finally be a real husband and wife. Chloe was lost in a daydream about my recovery when her phone suddenly rang. It was Jessica. Chloe answered instantly. What is it? Does Ethan need something? Ms. Walker, Jake is here to visit him, and now he's asking me to process his discharge papers. Absolutely not. He's not well enough, he can't leave the hospital. But he's very insistent, ma'am. I can't talk him out of it. Chloe was silent for a few seconds before replying, I'm on my way. The moment Olivia heard her sister was heading to the hospital, she insisted on tagging along. Their parents had wanted to visit earlier too, but Chloe had adamantly refused, claiming it would disturb my rest. This time, however, Chloe glanced at Olivia. She considered that I'd always had a great relationship with her family. Maybe seeing Olivia would jog my memory. So, she nodded in agreement. Half an hour later, Chloe and Olivia arrived on the hospital's private floor. As they approached my room, they could hear Jake shouting angrily from inside. Why the hell can't you leave? What? Does she plan to keep you locked up in here forever? Chloe's face darkened at his words, and she immediately pushed the door open. Because Ethan hasn't fully recovered, he can't be discharged. Jake turned, flinching slightly when he saw Chloe, but then he thought of me and straightened his spine. I already spoke to the doctor. He said there's absolutely nothing wrong with Ethan. Chloe truly despised Jake. Ethan was hers, yet this guy was always trying to get between them, even using her private nickname for me. Ethan has amnesia, didn't you know? Isn't that a good thing? He can finally forget all the misery you put him through. And you heartless bitch, you can't hurt him anymore. Jake, who the hell do you think you are, talking to my sister like that? Olivia shot back. What, is your sister above criticism? Look at what Ethan was like before, and look at him now after 3 years with her. Are you telling me she's not the reason? It's a miracle he's not a ghost haunting your family by now. Your sister is a piece of trash with zero boundaries. Olivia's face was pale with rage, but when it came to me, she had no comeback. The truth was, Chloe was incredibly good to me, and the entire Walker family knew it. But none of them could explain what was going on between Chloe and the younger son of the Anderson family. Olivia had asked her sister about it, but Chloe had just told her to stay out of it. I didn't cheat, Chloe said, her eyes fixed on my face, completely ignoring Jake. Ethan, I've told you so many times, there is nothing between Dylan and me. I don't love him, and I have never, ever betrayed you. My expression, however, remained placid. Not unmoved, just utterly calm. But Jake wasn't having it. As much as he hated my lack of fight, he followed the drama between Chloe and me closely, and he knew about every single time she and Dylan had been a trending topic on Twitter. Didn't cheat? You want me to pull up a list of all your trending topics to jog your memory? Jake sneered. No? Then why did you ditch Ethan on your wedding night to go see Dylan? Why did you spend your anniversary with Ethan at the hospital with Dylan? Why did you fly overseas to be with Dylan on your 3rd anniversary, leaving Ethan all alone? This accident is your fault. Jake's voice was a near hysterical roar, but Chloe just pressed her lips together, her gaze never leaving my face. This time, Olivia looked from one of us to the other and finally came to a conclusion. Her brother-in-law really had lost his memory. It wasn't just Chloe who was panicking, Olivia was too. In 3 years, she had never seen me act so cold toward any of the walkers. She tried to mediate. Ethan, Chloe was actually, but I cut her off. I'm leaving the hospital. Clearly, I had no interest in hearing any more explanations. Everything I'd seen and heard over the past 3 days, combined with the diary I'd found on my secret account, had already solidified my opinion of my marriage and of Chloe herself. Chloe's fingers clenched into a fist. After a long pause, she sighed softly. Fine, I'll have the doctor draw some blood for a final check, and if everything's okay, don't even think about it. I snapped. Nobody is taking another drop of my blood. Ethan, if you're that desperate for my blood, you can dig up my corpse and take it from my grave. My cruel words made the color drain from Chloe's face. She knew I hated having my blood drawn. For the past 3 years, she'd had to coax me into getting a test every 6 months. Afterward, she'd always take me out for a fancy dinner and take a few days off work to spend with me, and I'd always been compliant. But since the accident, it was like I was a completely different person. Chloe couldn't understand it. Amnesia was about losing memories, wasn't it? Why would it completely change my personality? Chloe, he looks fine, Olivia interjected, trying to de-escalate. His color is good, he should be okay. Just let him go home and rest. It's got to be boring staying in the hospital anyway. Olivia swallowed hard, trying to play peacemaker. This was getting serious. She needed to call their parents to mediate. I always listened to them. For now, though, it was best to just agree with me and avoid a huge fight in the middle of the hospital. In the end, Chloe relented. Fine, have it your way. I'll go handle the discharge paperwork. When Jake saw her give in, he shot me a worried look, afraid I'd soften up again. Thankfully, my expression remained unchanged as Chloe turned and left the room. Jake visibly relaxed. Good, this is how a man should be, not some crying, sniveling mess. But while Chloe was off dealing with the paperwork, 3 unwelcome guests arrived. My older sister, Isabella, and my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson. The moment Jake saw them, he started in with the sarcasm. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Don't tell me you're here for another handout. After all, besides me, there wasn't a decent person in the entire Anderson clan. Jake's direct accusation about their motives made their expressions sour instantly. My sister Isabella looked particularly furious. I had already guessed these must be my relatives. Taking advantage of my amnesia, Jake immediately started filling me in. Ethan, that's your family. For the last 3 years, they've been constantly hitting you up for money and dragging you back from the Walker's place to wait on them hand and foot. Really? So the Andersons are poor. Poor. Jake's eye twitched as he was thrown back to our school days. Back then, he genuinely thought my family was broke, so he'd often take me to work holidays at his uncle's restaurant to earn some spending money. That's where he met my family for the first time, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson and their 3 daughters. They were decked out in designer clothes, treating Dylan to a fancy meal. They recognized me, and after a few passive-aggressive comments from Dylan, the whole family started berating me for shaming them by working there. Just as that memory surfaced, Mrs. Anderson spoke, her voice dripping with displeasure. Ethan, why are you still hanging around with this classless person? Haven't I told you your status has changed? You shouldn't be associating with people like him. Jake gritted his teeth, but since she was my biological mother, he held his tongue. Luckily, I shattered her composure with 2 simple words. I don't remember. What kind of attitude is that? I'm your mother. How dare you speak to me that way? Just as she finished, the door to the room swung open. Chloe walked in, having finished the discharge paperwork. Sensing the tense atmosphere, she immediately moved to stand by my side. Mr. Anderson, Mrs. Anderson. The Andersons shot to their feet, surprised to see Chloe there. Mrs. Anderson instantly plastered on a smile, and Mr. Anderson stepped forward, hand outstretched, but Chloe simply reached out and pulled her sister, Olivia, in front of her. Only Isabella frowned. Chloe, why did you let Jake in here? My husband, Chloe stated coolly, can see whomever he pleases. Jake was thrilled to hear that. As much of a mess as Chloe was, she always publicly defended me, at least when it came to my family. She always took my side against them. He immediately shot back with a sneer. You hear that? Ethan belongs to Chloe now, not to you Andersons. That's ridiculous, Isabella retorted. Even if he married into the Walker family, he's still an Anderson. An Anderson? Do you people even treat him like one? Jake fired back. When he married Chloe, didn't you demand $200 million from the Walkers? Did you contribute a single penny to the wedding? Do I have to spell it out for you? He basically married into their family. Besides, he's closer to the Walkers now than he ever was to you. My sister-in-law is loaded. She didn't need a dowry from him, Isabella snapped. And our family's business is none of your concern. She looked like she wanted to knock Jake unconscious to stop him from airing their dirty laundry in front of the Walkers. Jake was about to fire back again, but I grabbed his wrist. Don't waste your breath arguing with irrelevant people. It's not worth the stress. Jake thought I was about to back down again, but my words made him grin. Amnesiac Ethan was awesome. He hoped I'd never get my memory back, so I wouldn't get emotionally manipulated by these vampires and turn back into their personal punching bag. I calmed Jake down, then turned to the Andersons, who were clearly holding back only because Chloe was present. I've been tied to Dylan for years. It's time to cut the cord. As for any debt I owed you for raising me, my wife has paid it in full with cash. From now on, we go our separate ways. Don't contact me again. After I spoke, Jake looked puzzled. He noticed that when I mentioned cutting ties with Dylan, all three Andersons looked incredibly nervous, even glancing quickly at Chloe. Before Jake could puzzle it out, Mrs. Anderson burst into tears. Fine. Now that you've grown up, you want to disown your own mother. I carried you for 9 months. I even had a procedure done after you and Dylan were born and can't have any more children. You already have 5 kids. You wanted more? Are you addicted to giving birth or something? Jake couldn't help but blurt out when he heard her can't have children anymore line, and I suddenly laughed. I didn't remember my history with Jake, and we hadn't had time to talk about how we met, but I could feel his unconditional support for me. At this, Isabella finally snapped and advanced on Jake. You better believe I'll. Seeing this, I instinctively pulled Jake behind me. What are you going to do? Getting a little defensive, are we? Did he strike a nerve? My anger seemed to trigger Chloe's. Her voice dropped to an icy command. All of you, get out. She was looking directly at the Andersons, and everyone in the room knew exactly who she was talking to. Mrs. Anderson's fake smile faltered, and Mr. Anderson was clearly humiliated, but he didn't dare challenge Chloe directly. Besides, I was acting strangely today. They decided they'd come back to negotiate with me some other time, when Chloe wasn't around. Just as the 3 of them reached the door, I spoke again. I'll say this one last time. It's over between me and Dylan, and it's over between me and the entire Anderson family. Don't ever come looking for me again, or I'll release everything I have on you and ruin you completely. I might not remember anything, but my phone had a treasure trove of information. I had taken screenshots of all the bank transfers and chat logs before I deleted their contacts. I had all the proof I needed. Hearing my threat, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson whipped around, their eyes blazing with fury. Isabella stared at me in shock. Was this the same timid brother who used to call her sis, in a barely audible whisper? But none of them said another word as they hastily exited the room. Jake looked completely bewildered. He turned to me. Ethan, what the hell do you have on them? Why are they so terrified? Chloe and Olivia were staring at me too, clearly wondering the same thing. Just bank records. They've taken a lot of money from me over the last 3 years, I said, glancing at Chloe, who was just as guilty of wanting my blood. I didn't want Jake to know the real issue between me and Dylan. If Jake found out the truth, he'd raise hell. The Walkers were powerful, and the Andersons weren't to be trifled with either. His family couldn't stand against either of them, and I wasn't going to drag him into my mess. Besides, in the current situation, I needed Chloe to keep the Andersons in check. At least we hadn't completely burned our bridges yet. I didn't want to start a war with her, only to have my so-called family laugh from the sidelines. Chloe was, at worst, a superficial wife who hadn't loved me for 3 years. But the Andersons and I had a 20-year history of resentment. They gave birth to me but never raised me, emotionally manipulated me, and treated me as nothing more than Dylan's personal blood bank. I had no intention of letting any of that go. I pressed a hand to my racing heart. I might not remember the past, but the hatred was still there, buried deep inside. It surged up the moment I saw the Andersons, just like the revulsion I felt the first time I laid eyes on Chloe. Once my heart rate returned to normal, I threw back the covers to get dressed. Let's go. We can leave now. But the woman beside my bed was faster, kneeling down, taking my ankle in her hand, and starting to put my shoe on for me. I could tell with a single glance that the shoes were expensive. The sight of her kneeling before me made my skin crawl. I pulled my foot back, stood barefoot on the floor, and took the shoe from her hand. "Don't bother. I can do it myself." I put my shoes on quickly. By the time Chloe looked up from her kneeling position, I had already turned and was walking away. She stared at my retreating back, whispering my name in a daze. "Ethan." Jake, finally recovering from the shock of seeing Chloe kneel to put on my shoes, scratched his head and hurried after me. "Chloe, you should go home with him," Olivia said. "I'm going to call Mom and Dad." She knew things were serious now and was desperate for backup. After all, her sister, who was usually so reserved, only ever opened up around me, and that was only when I was willing to listen. Now that I was so cold and resistant, Chloe would be at a complete loss for words. Their parents had to get involved. Chloe remained kneeling for a long time before finally rising, murmuring a quiet acknowledgement, and walking out of the room. The moment she was gone, Olivia pulled out her phone and placed a video call to their mother. Outside the hospital, after some friendly negotiation, I ended up in the Walker family's Rolls-Royce. When we dropped Jake off, he got out and made a gesture, signaling for me to hit him up on iMessage later. I nodded. Chloe watched me from the side, a look of fascination on her face as I smiled at him. I rolled up the window, and when I turned back and saw her still staring, my expression instantly went cold. 10 minutes later, I walked into our villa. I stood in the foyer, looking at the living room decor, a little dazed. For all its luxury, the house felt surprisingly warm and inviting. "Do you remember any of it?" Chloe asked, her voice soft as she gently wrapped her arms around my waist from behind. "This is our home. You decorated it yourself." A tickle spread across my waist, and my skin broke out in goosebumps. "No, I don't remember," I said dismissively, using the excuse of changing my shoes to slip out of her grasp. Chloe paused for a second, her hands falling empty to her sides, before she started to change her own shoes. Once I was standing again, I headed straight for the stairs. "Let's talk in the study." Chloe watched me go for a long moment before finally following. We ended up sitting on the sofa in the study. "Would you like some juice? It's fresh," she offered. I declined coolly and got straight to the point. "Chloe, let's get a divorce. This thing with you and Dylan can't go on forever." I had barely started when she launched herself at me, pulling me into a tight embrace. "Ethan, I'm yours. Only yours. There's nothing between me and Dylan. It's just, he has depression, he's suicidal, so I have to." "Chloe, let go of me." Naturally, she refused. It wasn't until I gasped, "I can't breathe," that she loosened her grip slightly, though she still kept me trapped in her arms. "So you have no intention of even considering a divorce, is that right?" "Over my dead body," she said, her arms tightening around me again. I had expected her to refuse the divorce. For couples this wealthy, even if they were both having affairs, they'd never divorce. Saving face was more important than anything. "Fine. If you can agree to 3 conditions and sign a formal agreement, I'll consider staying married, for now. First, you are never to draw my blood again, nor will you allow anyone else to. I will not be giving another transfusion to Dylan, period. His rare blood type might be hard to find, but with the Anderson and Walker family fortunes, you can afford to find other donors. Stop bleeding me dry." Chloe was silent for a long time. The biannual blood test was... She pushed the thought away. The doctors had said he was healthy for the past 3 years. With that, she agreed. Once she agreed, I moved on to the second condition. "Second, I am cutting all ties with the Anderson family. If you choose to help them in the future, do it for Dylan's sake. Leave me out of it completely." Chloe agreed to this one immediately. The only reason she'd ever bailed out the Andersons was for my sake. If I was done with them, so was she. "Third, I'm getting a job. You can't stop me or control what I do. I want complete freedom." "A job? But work is hard, Ethan. You don't have to work. I'll take care of you. I don't want you to turn me into a useless kept man." "I'll take care of you" is the biggest lie in the world. You can't be independent when you're living off someone else. The Andersons just took without giving. Chloe was smarter. She used money to control me. Chloe was silent for a long time before finally giving in. "All right, but for your safety, I'm assigning a bodyguard to watch over you discreetly whenever you go out." "Protection or surveillance?" I shot back, afraid I'll run off and Dylan will lose his blood supply. She can't possibly think I was joking about my conditions. "It's for protection, Ethan. What are you thinking?" Chloe said, a bitter expression on her face as she looked at me, her amnesiac husband who had zero trust in her. Why would I spy on you? You're my husband. I just want to protect you, the same way you used to protect me. Since you've agreed to all 3 conditions, have the agreement drawn up. We'll sign it, and I want it notarized, if possible. As I spoke, Chloe watched my lips move and subconsciously started to lean in. I immediately pushed her away. Should I add a 4th condition? No touching? That snapped her out of it, but she didn't back down completely, murmuring, Ethan, we're married. Besides, I was only going to use my mouth, not my hands. I'm afraid I won't be able to stop myself, she whispered. Married? Are you sure about that? Isn't it a marriage in name only? Whatever. Just have the agreement ready for me to sign, I said, turning and leaving the study before she could reply. Chloe sat there for a while before finally picking up her phone. She texted Jessica the 3 conditions I had laid out, instructing her to have the agreement drafted, delivered to the villa, and to bring a legal team for notarization. Only then did she get up to head back to the bedroom. The master bedroom was locked from the inside. Chloe stared at the doorknob I had apparently broken, for the first time regretting buying such a sturdy door. With a blank expression, she turned and went into the adjacent bedroom. She was going to climb through the window. She couldn't sleep unless she was holding me. Meanwhile, I had taken a relaxing shower, climbed into bed, and turned off the lights, ready for a good night's sleep. But just as I was drifting off after tossing and turning, a faint noise came from the balcony. I shot awake, sitting bolt upright and staring warily toward the sound, my hand creeping toward the lamp on the nightstand. But as the shadow neared the bed, I recognized who it was. I let go of the lamp and switched on the lights instead. She looked a little awkward when she saw I was awake. Ethan, you're still up? She asked, quietly lifting a corner of the covers. What are you doing in here? Sleeping, she said, reaching for me. I slapped her hand away without a second thought. Looks like we need to add that 4th condition to the agreement after all. Chloe understood what I meant and quickly explained. I've slept holding you every single night. I can't fall asleep otherwise. Is that right? And when you're away, do you have trouble sleeping while holding Dylan? You seemed fine to go hold him on our wedding night. I've never held anyone else. Only you, Ethan. Do I look like I believe that? It's true, I swear. You used to believe me, you just don't remember, she insisted. Chloe suddenly grabbed my hand, pulling me closer. Ethan, let me show you proof, okay? Her eyes were pleading. I stared at her for a moment, suddenly curious about what proof she could possibly have of her innocence. A moment later, she presented her evidence. Her phone, filled with surveillance videos and screen recordings. There were clips from a camera in the master bedroom showing us sleeping in each other's arms, and screen recordings of her on video calls from her car while I talked her to sleep. The screen recordings were one thing, but a camera in the master bedroom. My scalp crawled. I looked around nervously. You put a camera in our bedroom? I asked you first and you agreed, Ethan. Only my phone can access it, and it's off most of the time. I only turn it on when I'm home. I just wanted to capture our moments together. So, the old me had agreed to let Chloe watch me whenever she wanted. Even when she was away, she could just pull out her phone on a whim and watch my every move. I couldn't watch anymore. I couldn't believe I had been so hopelessly love-struck. After a long silence, I finally said, You must have blackmailed me. I didn't blackmail you, Ethan. You just liked it when I kissed you. All I had to do was kiss you, and you'd agree to anything. That made me even angrier, furious at my past self's complete lack of a spine. Just shut up. Are you leaving or not? If you won't, I will. I started to get out of bed, but she suddenly wrapped her arms around me, burying her face in my neck. I'm not leaving, and you're not leaving either, Ethan. Ethan, we're married. Married couples are supposed to sleep together. Sleeping in separate rooms is bad for the relationship. Her twisted logic was so absurd I almost laughed. She and Dylan were a constant trending topic, and we hadn't been intimate in 3 years. What relationship was there to damage in our fake marriage? Still, there was no point in starting an all-out war with her. I was the one in the weaker position after all. At that point, I was out of options. What on earth was the old me thinking? He was not only a crybaby but a total pushover, content to be kept at home like a pet. Whatever. Looking at her now, we had been married for 3 years. Maybe some feelings had developed. My first priority was to deal with Dylan. He'd been using me as a blood bag for 20 years. It wasn't unreasonable for me to use Chloe to get back at him. With that thought, I gave her a light pat, my voice devoid of emotion. If you're going to sleep, then lie down. Otherwise, get out. She immediately lay down, still holding me, and gave a voice command to turn off the lights, plunging the room into darkness. As I lay there, held tightly in her arms, I suddenly realized a serious problem. I wasn't wearing any pajamas. I patted her arm again. Let go. I need to use the bathroom. She seemed to suspect I was trying to escape and her arms tightened for a second, but then she let go. What if I really did have to go? Holding it in wasn't good for me. The moment I was free, I got out of bed, went to the closet, and put on a pair of pajamas. Only then did Chloe realize my trip to the bathroom was just an excuse to get dressed. When she hugged me again, she buried her face against me, looking aggrieved. There was something almost pathological about her at times. She seemed to be jealous of the very clothes on my body. After all, they were closer to a place she had never dared to touch. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, ignoring the woman behind me. Just as I was about to drift off again, a voice whispered in my ear. The negative effects of sleeping with clothes on include disrupting sleep patterns, preventing the skin from breathing, interfering with thermoregulation, and lowering overall sleep quality. I jabbed my elbow back sharply. I heard a soft grunt, and then the world was finally silent. The next morning, I opened my eyes to the sight of Chloe's stunning face and, against my better judgment, found myself admiring it for a moment. Then, I heard a soft noise of protest. She slowly opened her eyes and looked at me, her expression confused as I pinched her cheek. "Ethan, I'm going out today," I said, acting as if nothing had happened. I pushed her away, sat up, and straightened my clothes. Chloe sat up too. "Then I'll go with you. I'm going to look for a job." "Did Walker Enterprises get a new CEO? Don't you have actual work to do?" "You are my work, Ethan." Her meaning was lost on me. I just told her coldly, "Condition number 3 of our agreement. I have absolute freedom. Don't break the terms." With that, I got ready to leave. By the time Chloe came downstairs, I was already gone. She stared at the untouched breakfast on the table, her face dark as she called for the maid. "He didn't eat breakfast?" A maid earning a 5-figure monthly salary who couldn't even get her Ethan to eat breakfast was a maid she didn't need. The maid's face went pale. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I tried to get him to eat, but he just gave me this look." She trailed off, not daring to continue. Chloe frowned. Aside from the head butler she had appointed, I had personally hired all the other staff in the villa. I'd always had a good relationship with them. Why had I changed so much? It seemed he was resistant to everything related to me. He even wanted to get a job and earn his own money, to draw a clear line between us. As her panic grew, her phone rang. It was her mother, Mrs. Walker. "Chloe, what on earth is going on? Olivia told me Ethan was in an accident and has amnesia. How could you let him get hurt again? Why can't you just stay away from that Dylan Anderson? I've told you 100 times he's no good. Why won't you listen?" Mrs. Walker's voice was choked with sobs. The news of my accident and amnesia had broken her heart. She adored her well-behaved son-in-law. If Chloe hadn't always been a bit different, she would have been tempted to ground her for life. "It's only temporary. He'll remember me," Chloe said. Her mother sighed heavily. "Ethan adores you and he's willing to put up with a lot, but if you keep breaking his heart like this, sooner or later, he's going to give up on you completely. If your father was constantly trending on Twitter with another woman, I would have divorced him ages ago. And if the roles were reversed, he'd divorce me in a heartbeat." Chloe's hand tightened on her phone. She suddenly remembered my cold, emotionless words from the night before. "Chloe, let's get a divorce." Before Chloe could respond, her mother continued, "Besides, you and Ethan have been married for 3 years. It's about time we heard the pitter-patter of little feet. When are you two planning on having a baby?" At the question, a knot formed in Chloe's stomach. A baby? That wasn't exactly a priority, considering she hadn't even slept with him yet. But before she could explain, her mother went on. "Never mind, I'm done talking to you. Your father and I just landed. We're on our way to see Ethan now." "Ethan's not home." "What? It's only 8 in the morning and he's not home? What did you do now?" "He went to work." Chloe's explanation only made her mother angrier. "Are you out of your mind? How did I raise such a foolish daughter?" "Forget it, I'm done talking to you. I'm calling Ethan myself." A long silence filled the living room. Chloe stood there, tall and solitary, looking like a lost puppy. A moment later, her mother called back. "Chloe, I can't get through to Ethan's phone." A knot of dread formed in Chloe's stomach. She quickly hung up on her mother and tried calling me herself. "The number you have dialed is currently busy." Chloe couldn't get through either. She immediately assumed I was on the phone with Jake. She opened iMessage and sent a text to my pinned contact. "Ethan, Mom's back in town. She wants to see you." But all she saw was a red exclamation mark and a notification. "Message failed to send. The recipient has blocked this number." Meanwhile, my black-clad bodyguard, Mason, followed me into the elevator, waiting outside the door as Jake and I stepped into an office. The phone he used for direct contact with his boss vibrated. He pulled it out, saw the question, and thinking of my mood earlier, replied decisively, Ms. Walker, he seems to be in a very good mood. Chloe, already in a foul mood from being blocked, felt even worse reading that. He's in a good mood? Is it because he blocked me? He blocked her parents and both of her sisters too. But he used to be so close to them, closer than he was to her. This amnesiac Ethan was certainly rebellious. The fact that he had blocked the entire Walker family was not something they could keep quiet. Mrs. Walker wasn't a fool. She tried calling from a different number and it rang, but no one picked up. This won't do. We need to go talk to him. Who knows what kind of nonsense someone has been feeding him since the accident, turning him against us. I bet it was that Dylan Anderson. If murder weren't illegal, she would have had Dylan Anderson taken care of long ago. Mr. Walker couldn't sit still either. I'll have our butler contact Mason right now and find out where Ethan is. Mr. Walker pressed the intercom and summoned their head butler, Mr. Mason. His son, Mason, was the bodyguard Chloe had assigned to me. The elder Mr. Mason had been with the Walker family for decades. Soon, Mr. Mason contacted his son and learned that Jake and I had gone to Miller Properties for an interview. And so, Mr. and Mrs. Walker, fresh off the plane, immediately instructed their driver to take them to the Miller Properties headquarters. I was currently in an office at Miller Properties, sipping tea. Even though I was here for an interview, Jake's uncle, the company's president, Mr. Miller, seemed incredibly nervous. Mr. Miller, none of the positions you mentioned are quite right for me. I'd like to be in sales. Sales? Mr. Miller looked utterly shocked. The husband of the CEO of Walker Enterprises wanted to work as a salesman in his small-time company? And by sales, he didn't mean selling real estate from a sales office, did he? I nodded, confirming his suspicion. Yes, whichever development is selling the worst, send me there. I guarantee I'll sell every last unit for you, sir. My answer made Mr. Miller so nervous his hand trembled as he held his teacup. This was Chloe Walker's husband. When his nephew told him yesterday that I wanted to work for him, he'd immediately started asking around about the Walker family. He'd learned that while the great CEO was constantly surrounded by scandal, my position in the Walker family was secure. I was known to be gentle and easygoing. Once, at a Walker family gala, some rich kid with a crush on Chloe had started giving me a hard time. I was ready to let it go, but the entire Walker family had come to my defense. They'd not only thrown the guy out, but had publicly announced that Walker Enterprises would sever all ties with his family's company. After that, no one ever dared to disrespect me again. Well, you might laugh, but to be honest, none of our properties are selling particularly well, Mr. Miller admitted sheepishly. Jake couldn't help but laugh. His uncle's real estate ventures were notorious for losing money. I smiled too. Then send me to the sales office for your worst performing development. All right then, in that case, I'd be honored to. Before he could finish, the office door burst open and a frantic secretary rushed in. Mr. and Mrs. Walker. The senior Mr. and Mrs. Walker are here. What? The chairman of Walker Enterprises and his wife. Mr. Miller shot to his feet. He glanced at me and saw my own surprise, realizing this wasn't a planned visit. This is it, he thought. Mr. and Mrs. Walker must have found out their son-in-law was coming to work here and have come to put a stop to it. Mr. Miller could feel a massive business opportunity slipping through his fingers. Mr. and Mrs. Walker didn't wait for an official welcome from the executives, nor did they agree to wait in a conference room. The floor manager, not daring to argue, simply led them directly to the president's office. Mr. Miller had just stepped out of his office when he met them. Mr. Walker, what an honor to have you and Mrs. Walker visit my humble company, he gushed, rushing forward with his hand extended. Mr. Walker smiled and gave his hand a brief shake. We heard Ethan was thinking of working here, so we thought we'd come and see the place for ourselves. Well, Mr. Miller stammered. Is Ethan in there? Mr. Walker asked, withdrawing his hand and looking past Mr. Miller toward the office. Yes, he is. Please, Mr. Walker, Mrs. Walker, come in. I remained seated in the office, not moving an inch. I didn't remember any of the Walkers, and since my marriage to Chloe was a sham, I saw no reason to suck up to her parents. I had blocked all of them, so what was the point of pretending everything was fine? The door opened and Mrs. Walker rushed in first. Ethan, she cried, hurrying toward me. Before I could even get a good look at her, she had pulled me into a tight hug. Chloe's mother was this affectionate? Jake looked surprised too. He finally realized that all those times I'd been upset over Chloe and said, but her family is really good to me, I hadn't been lying. Mr. Walker sat down across from me and cleared his throat. Dear, let's be mindful. We're in public. At his words, Mrs. Walker came to her senses, releasing me from the hug but immediately taking my hands in hers. Ethan, dear, why are you rushing back to work? You should be resting at home. I didn't answer her question. The large office fell silent. After a moment, their butler, Mr. Mason, stepped in to smooth things over. Sir, Mr. and Mrs. Walker flew back to New York overnight after getting a call from Ms. Olivia. They came straight here to see you without even stopping to rest. I just offered a polite smile. I knew from the old chat logs that I had gotten along well with Chloe's family, but I was also sure that the only reason they were nice to me was because I was Chloe's husband. So, I just said quietly, I'm sorry to have made you both go to so much trouble. No, not at all. Ethan could never be in the wrong, Mrs. Walker exclaimed, turning on her butler. Mr. Mason, what are you talking about? Do you think I'm so old a plane ride requires a medical checkup? It was a private jet. I slept perfectly fine. Seeing my indifferent expression, Mrs. Walker felt a wave of panic and was close to tears. That girl, Chloe, what had she done to lose her wonderful son-in-law? After mentally cursing her daughter, she shot a glare at Mr. Mason before turning back to me with a kind smile. Ethan, what kind of job are you looking for? Do you want me to help? Mr. Walker immediately chimed in. And Ethan, if you like this company, I'll buy it from Mr. Miller for you. It can be yours. The Miller Properties executives standing nearby looked like they were about to weep with joy. I said nothing, just stared down at the hand Mrs. Walker was still holding. It seemed Chloe's parents really were very kind to me. Maybe it was because they didn't have a son. In any case, drawing a line didn't mean I had to be rude. With that thought, I gently patted her hand. Thank you, Mom, Dad, but I've already made an arrangement with Mr. Miller. I'm going to help him sell houses at one of his properties. Hearing me call him Mr. Miller, both Mr. and Mrs. Walker shot a sharp glare at him. If I hadn't lost my memory, I probably would have called him by a more familiar term. But as it was, they couldn't say anything without making things more awkward. Mrs. Walker then turned back to me. All right then, Ethan, dear, whatever properties you're selling, I'll buy them all. Her statement was so shocking it took me a moment to process it. Mom, we're family. I can't let you spend your money like that. I'm working to earn a living, to make money from other people, not from you. Mrs. Walker tapped her forehead. You're right, you're right. My money is your money anyway. I'm getting so forgetful in my old age. But even as she said it, an idea was forming in her mind. She had plenty of friends. She'd message them all later and tell them her dear Ethan was experiencing life by selling real estate at Miller Properties, and that they should all go and show their support. And her husband had his own circle of golf and poker buddies. They could all buy a house from Ethan too. Around noon, thanks to my presence, Mr. Miller had the honor of inviting Mr. and Mrs. Walker to lunch. I didn't refuse. My plan was to leverage my status as Mr. Walker to help the Miller family make money, so that if Chloe ever did divorce me, I'd have something to stand on. In the private dining room of an upscale restaurant, Mr. Walker ordered an array of expensive dishes, which the waiter dutifully noted down. After they finished ordering, Mrs. Walker seemed to remember something. She glanced at me, then turned to their butler. Mr. Mason, please call Chloe and have one of the staff from the villa drive over a bottle of fresh milk. The food won't be here for at least an hour, so there's plenty of time. Yes, Mrs. Walker, Mr. Mason said with a nod, stepping out to make the call. Half an hour later, Chloe herself appeared at the door. She walked over to me and placed a bottle of fresh Jersey milk on the table in front of me. I was surprised. I didn't think the great CEO would be so dutiful as to deliver milk herself. In front of her parents, I wasn't about to embarrass her, so I greeted her and pulled out the empty chair beside me. Chloe didn't hesitate, pulling the chair closer and sitting down next to me. I picked up the bottle of milk and placed it next to her mother. Mom, Chloe brought this for you. Mrs. Walker looked surprised for a second before understanding. She smiled and explained, Ethan dear, that's for you. For me? Yes. 3 years ago, Chloe mentioned you were a little anemic and the doctor recommended you build up your strength. So she had a herd of Jersey cows imported from England, hired a team to care for them, and had fresh milk delivered to the villa every day. You've been drinking it for 3 years. You can't buy it anywhere else. Mrs. Walker explained the whole story, and I was stunned. But then I realized, of course Chloe would go to such great lengths to keep me healthy. She needed to keep her personal blood bag for Dylan in prime condition. I even started to suspect that the only reason she'd married me in the first place was because the old me had a crush on her and had probably been the one to propose. Just then, Chloe thoughtfully opened the milk for me. I didn't hesitate to pick it up and start drinking. Being a human blood bag aside, this wealthy lifestyle was certainly comfortable. According to Jake, I never had it this good with the Andersons. Before I married into the Walker family, I'd never even been to a gala. Most people didn't even know the Andersons had 2 sons. Back in school, Jake and our classmates all thought I was poor. My allowance was tiny and my clothes were cheap. I was lost in my own thoughts and didn't hear a word Mrs. Walker was saying to me throughout the meal. The others, however, were deep in conversation. In light of my new job, Mr. Walker was telling Mr. Miller and his executives that Walker Enterprises would prioritize them for any suitable future partnerships. Mr. Miller and his team looked so excited they might have started dancing right there. Chloe never paid attention to business talk at meals. Her focus was always entirely on me. So when she saw my gaze drift to a platter of fresh shrimp, she leaned in and whispered, "Want some?" I turned and met her eyes, saying nothing for a long moment. Was she really going to condescend to peel shrimp for me in front of everyone? I let out a small, mocking laugh. Sure. The next thing I knew, she had put on a pair of disposable gloves and started peeling several large shrimp for me. I glanced instinctively at her parents. Mr. Walker didn't even look their way, but Mrs. Walker gave a small, satisfied nod, clearly pleased with her daughter's actions. My in-laws, they really were hard to dislike. Chloe, it turned out, was an expert at peeling shrimp, leaving each one perfectly clean. I ate every last one without a shred of guilt. Just as I was hoping for more, she took off her gloves. That's enough. Too much isn't good for you. I didn't argue, just turned and finished my milk. The bottle was soon empty. Seeing me full and satisfied, Chloe's eyes filled with a gentle warmth. If Ethan could always be this healthy, then maybe the amnesia wasn't so bad. Nothing was more important than his health. This was the first time Jake had ever had a meal with Chloe, and he'd been watching her expression the entire time. Now he looked completely and utterly confused. If he hadn't seen 3 years of trending Twitter drama with his own eyes, and if Chloe had ever once publicly denied it, he would have sworn there was some huge misunderstanding. After all, the way she looked at me was so incredibly tender. It was like I was the only person in the world. Overseas, in a small resort town. Isabella, what did you just say? It's true, Dylan. After Ethan lost his memory, he blocked every single one of us, Isabella said, her face grim on the video call. Dylan looked panicked. He really has amnesia? He's not just faking it. Isabella remembered the cold, distant look in my eyes at the hospital. She sighed. He's not faking. He told us in front of Chloe and Olivia that he was cutting ties with you. At that, Dylan tensed. Cutting ties? Did he say anything about the transfusions? No, not that. Isabella's answer made Dylan visibly relax. Good, as long as he didn't spill the beans. I'm booking a flight back now. I need to see for myself if he's really lost his memory. Meanwhile, Chloe had used the lunch break excuse to drag me home, finally getting a chance to talk to me alone. Why did you choose such a difficult job? She asked, her hands wandering over my face. The old me would have pulled her into a hug by now, but the current me just impatiently brushed her hand away. I need to earn a living. Even if my position as a Walker in-law is just for show, outsiders don't know that. They'll buy from me, and I'll get a good commission. Chloe stared at me, biting her lip. All the money I make is for you, Ethan. You have all of my credit cards. You don't need to work this hard. Seriously, I said, completely incredulous. How could that be possible? Where's our prenup? Let me see it. There's no way it says you have to give me your credit cards. We don't have a prenup, Ethan. Who's been feeding you this nonsense? I frowned at her words. I'd seen the old trending topics about our lavish wedding, so I knew we'd had one. But how could we not have a prenup? All wealthy couples have prenups, don't they? Unless we were never legally married. With that thought, I asked, do we have a marriage license? Yes, of course we do, she said, pulling out her phone and showing me a photo of it from her gallery. I examined the photo of the license carefully. It was definitely me and Chloe with an official government seal. In the picture, I was smiling, looking blissfully happy. The sight of it sent a pang of pain through my chest. The sweeter the smile in that photo, the more miserable the last 3 years must have been. The old me was such an idiot. I looked away, unable to stand the sight of my own foolish grin. Chloe gently took both of my hands. Ethan, please don't push me away. We've always been so happy together. I let out a sarcastic laugh. And what about Dylan? Are you not happy with him? I'm only happy with you, Ethan. Dylan has severe depression. He's attempted suicide multiple times, which is why I have to be careful with him. There are millions of people with depression in the world. Are you going to go around placating every single one of them? I didn't believe for a second that Dylan had depression. Selfish people like him don't get depression. I'd have an easier time believing he was a psychopath. But he's your brother. The moment the words left her mouth, my head exploded with a searing pain. I gritted my teeth, shoved her to the floor, and ran upstairs, clutching my head. In that moment, only one thought consumed me. Who would want a brother like that? I wanted to kill him. Chloe, not expecting such a violent reaction, scrambled to her feet and chased me upstairs, but I had already locked the bedroom door. She tried to climb through the balcony window, but I had locked that too. Chloe was left standing on the locked balcony, biting her lip as she lowered her head in defeat. She knew I hated Dylan. She hated him too. But what could she do? She needed him alive. If he died, his marrow would be useless. And if something happened to you, Ethan, how would I save you then? I soaked in the tub for a full hour before I finally calmed down. The splitting headache had subsided, so I got out and dried off. Just as I was about to take a nap, my phone rang with an unknown number. I saw several missed calls from the same one. I narrowed my eyes and answered. A malicious voice I instantly recognized as Dylan's came through the speaker. "Brother, I'm on my way back to the country. Aren't you happy to hear that?" I had figured it was one of the Andersons calling from a different number, but I hadn't expected it to be him. "Fine by me. Happy? I'm ecstatic. Hurry back, so I can kill you sooner," I said, then hung up and blocked the number. Dylan was left speechless on the other end of the line. I put my phone on silent and lay down. I was done torturing myself. From now on, I would only torture my enemies. I didn't consciously know why I considered the Andersons my enemies, but my gut told me they were, and I decided to trust it. I fell asleep quickly, but my sleep was far from peaceful. I was curled up in a ball, writhing in agony. My dream was a suffocating blackness, filled with the image of a needle, magnified to a terrifying size. Then came the deafening sound of a car crash, followed by a choked, heartbroken sob. Ethan, who was calling my name? The next moment, the woman who had been waiting silently on the locked balcony heard my pained scream. Her pupils contracted in horror. Without a second's hesitation, she kicked in the glass door and leaped through the shower of broken shards. She brushed the glass from her clothes, shrugged off her jacket, and rushed to my side, pulling me into her arms. "Ethan, don't be afraid. I'm here. I'm always here." Her soft embrace pulled me from the nightmare. I was dazed, unable to shake the feeling that the dream had been real. Otherwise, why would my body react with such physical pain? Why would my heart ache so badly it felt like it was seizing up? I had wondered if I'd somehow slipped into a parallel universe, since I had no memory of anyone. But when Chloe and the Andersons appeared, I realized that even if my mind was blank, my body still remembered. I even started to worry I had violent tendencies. At the hospital, I'd had a visceral urge to smash something over their heads, and I had actually hit Chloe. Today's nightmare only confirmed that something was deeply wrong. I figured the car accident must have really damaged my brain, causing the amnesia, but I knew my memory would come back. I would remember everything I had suffered, and when I did, everyone who owed me would pay their debt. "You're holding me too tight. I can't breathe," I said quietly to the woman holding me. Her embrace was warm and soft, and a part of me wanted to relax into it, but my subconscious was screaming at me to get away from her, as far as possible. She immediately loosened her grip, though she didn't pull away completely, her hands moving to rest on my shoulders. "Ethan, did you have a nightmare?" The worry on her face looked genuine. I stared at her for a long moment before sneering. "Yeah, I dreamed you and Dylan were cuddled up together, and you were pregnant with his child. He saw me and called me a clown. You laughed too, and then you both pushed me down the stairs. I was just making it up, of course." I didn't remember the details of the nightmare, only the intense pain. My words seemed to cause her physical pain. She leaned in and gave me a light kiss, pretending not to see me flinch. "That would never happen. I would never hurt you, and I would never be with Dylan. It was just a bad dream." I scoffed at her attempt to comfort me. But since the divorce was off the table for now, I wasn't going to escalate things. For the time being, she was agreeing to whatever I said, and that suited me just fine. All I had to do was protect my blood. "Dylan just called me," I told her, watching her reaction closely. "He said he's on his way back." Chloe frowned at the news but said nothing. Hadn't I warned Dylan to leave Ethan alone? I've given him so many resources over the past 3 years. Seeing her expression darken, I continued my taunts. "What's wrong? Is your lover not allowed to step out of line? Are you going to call and yell at him now?" Chloe sighed, a weary look on her face. "Ethan, I belong only to you." I didn't believe her for a second. I'd sooner believe pigs could fly. "Chloe, I'm warning you now. You better tell Dylan to stay away from me." "Don't worry, Ethan. He wouldn't dare." I couldn't be bothered to respond to her empty promises. I had heard Dylan's taunts on the phone loud and clear, and combined with the entries on my secret account, it was obvious he had a long history of provoking and tormenting me. Why else would he always call her away on important days like our wedding night and our anniversaries? In any case, I had made my position clear. When I finally put Dylan in his place, Chloe had better not come crying to me. Doesn't the great CEO of Walker Enterprises have to work? I asked. She was still holding onto my shoulders, and I could see the pale skin of her collarbones just by glancing down. My father said he and Olivia will handle things at the office for a few days, so I can stay with you. I don't need you to stay with me, I snapped, my face hardening. But even with my harsh tone, she just replied softly, okay, you don't need me. I want to be with you. I was out of arguments. Remembering the agreement she had promised me, I took a deep breath and tried a more reasonable approach. We've had a sham marriage for 3 years. Now that I've forgotten all the bad parts, I just want to live my own life. You agreed to my conditions yesterday. But how can I have any freedom if you're constantly clinging to me? The only part of that she seemed to hear was that we hadn't been intimate in 3 years. It was true. After a long pause, she explained quietly, when we got married, you weren't well. Oh, really? And what about now? Now, you're much better now. And, I asked, a smirk playing on my lips, waiting to see what excuse she'd come up with next. Chloe had given herself a 3-year timeline, but my amnesia had thrown a wrench in her plans, forcing her to delay. Since you're so concerned about it, Ethan, then maybe we should. My smile vanished. I cut her off immediately. Stop, I don't remember you at all, and I will not sleep with a wife who has been unfaithful to me. If you're thinking about that, I'd rather file for divorce. I said that last part with no real conviction. I knew that with her status, the idea of me suing her for divorce was a joke. She could probably ruin any lawyer who dared to take my case. But to my surprise, she didn't laugh. Instead, she curled up against me and whispered, I'll agree to anything you want, Ethan, anything, except a divorce. A few days later, at the Andersons' villa, the moment Dylan walked in the door, he was asking about me. Dad, Isabella said Ethan has amnesia? At the mention of my name, Mr. Anderson snorted, his face grim. This isn't some TV drama. It was a minor accident. I spoke to the doctor. It was just a mild concussion. How could that cause amnesia? He's faking it. Mrs. Anderson scoffed, a look of pure disdain on her face. Dylan relaxed slightly, but he knew he had to see for himself. He pulled out his phone. Have you guys seen the news today? There are a ton of comments. Mr. Anderson of Walker Enterprises is experiencing life at Miller Properties. The great CEO Chloe Walker, who accompanied him, discovered the employees didn't have air conditioning and immediately had the company's president install it for the entire office. Hearing this, both Mr. and Mrs. Anderson's faces darkened. This is absurd. Mrs. Anderson fumed, feeling utterly humiliated by my actions. The Anderson family was now a publicly traded company, a respected name in New York City. They moved in elite circles, and here I was not just working, but working as a low-level salesman in a suburban real estate office. Mr. Anderson joined in the tirade. Has he lost his mind, or is he just trying to cause trouble? I always said nothing good would come from him hanging around that Jake character. As the family continued to rail against me, Dylan blinked and said pointedly, Mom, Dad, Chloe wouldn't let him go without. She must give him a monthly allowance. For him to suddenly start working, he must have run out of money, right? His words made Mrs. Anderson and my 3 sisters' faces fall. They all understood his implication. I had given them all the money Chloe had given me. And now that I was broke, I had no choice but to go out and get a job. After a long silence, Mrs. Anderson finally managed a reprimand. If he was out of money, why didn't he just tell us? Why on earth would he go into real estate? He's so pathetic. Dylan's eyes lit up at his mother's words. He took her arm. Even though we love the same woman, we're still twins. Let's go talk to him. If he's really short on cash, we can lend him some. We can't let him sell houses. It's not just embarrassing for the Walkers. It makes us look bad too. The family's expressions shifted again. Mr. Anderson slapped his thigh and stood up. Dylan's right. Our family is tied to the Walkers now. We can't let them be embarrassed. We're all going to Miller Properties to bring Ethan back. Seeing them all agree, Dylan couldn't help but smile. He didn't care about my job. He only cared about one thing, whether I had truly lost my memory. At 10 in the morning, a group of people stormed into the sales office of the Magnolia Gardens development. Mr. Anderson spotted me immediately, in my uniform, surrounded by potential buyers. Ethan, he bellowed, you're really here selling houses? This is a disgrace. You're coming home with us now. I put down the brochure I was holding and looked at him coldly. Mr. Anderson, if you're here to cause trouble, I suggest you leave immediately before security removes you. If you're here to buy a property, please get in line like everyone else. What did you call me? You didn't think I was joking at the hospital the other day, did you, Mr. Anderson? The entire Anderson family froze. The next second, Mrs. Anderson was pointing at me. I'm your mother. Are you really going to disown me? Mr. Anderson, recovering, added his own accusation. I'm your father. You can't just disown us. Even if you took it to court, no judge would allow it. I glanced at the crowd of onlookers, then let out a soft, cold laugh. My dear parents, who sold me to the Walker family for $200 million. That's you, isn't it? I had no intention of staying quiet from the moment they walked in. People love drama, and I could already see phones out, recording. I wasn't about to let them spin this against me. If the Andersons wanted to air their dirty laundry in public, I was happy to oblige. So he was sold to the Walkers? Someone whispered. What kind of parents are they? You can sell your son? For $200 million. That's the Walkers' business, I guess. But it's clear the Andersons only care about money, not family. The murmurs from the crowd made Mr. Anderson lose what little reason he had left. He raised his hand to slap me, screaming, "You ungrateful son!" But in the next instant, Mason, who had been watching closely, shot his hand out and caught my father's wrist, squeezing until he cried out in pain. The uproar in the sales office died down into a dead silence, all eyes fixed on the chaotic scene. I watched, my face a cold mask, as my father's face contorted in pain. I felt nothing. Mr. Anderson, I said, my voice flat. As I said, this is a place of business, not your personal stage. I turned to the security guard. Please escort these guests out. If they resist, call the police and report them for disorderly conduct. You wouldn't dare, Mrs. Anderson shrieked, but her bravado faltered under my icy stare. The Andersons were eventually escorted out by security. As they left, I caught a glimpse of Dylan's eyes, hidden in the group, glaring at me with pure venom, as if I were a traitor who didn't know his place. With the drama over, I offered a brief apology to the clients and my colleagues and got back to work. But the confrontation had taken more out of me than I realized. That afternoon, a sudden wave of dizziness washed over me. My vision went black, and I felt a warm, metallic trickle in my nose. I quickly tilted my head back, pressing a tissue to my nose as I hurried to the restroom. My reflection in the mirror was terrifyingly pale, and blood was seeping through my fingers, staining the tissue a bright red. I felt a surge of irritation, brushing it off as stress. After cleaning myself up, I tossed the bloody tissue in the trash and walked out as if nothing was wrong. I didn't notice that shortly after I left, Chloe appeared at the restroom door. She stared at the bright red stain in the trash can, her body trembling almost imperceptibly, her eyes filled with a raw, near-hysterical terror I had never seen before. Over the next few days, I felt constantly exhausted, but I blamed it on adjusting to the new job. Then one day, while I was explaining a floor plan to a client, a wave of dizziness hit me, stronger and more violent than any I'd felt before. The world tilted and spun. The client's cry of alarm sounded distant and muffled. The pen dropped from my hand, and my body went limp as I blacked out completely. In the last second before everything went dark, I thought I saw Chloe's terrified face as she ran toward me, screaming my name like her world was ending. Ethan. When I came to, I was back in that familiar hospital room. This wasn't just dizziness. I felt a profound weakness deep in my bones, as if every ounce of my strength had been siphoned away. I could hear a furious argument outside the door and strained to listen. It was Chloe's voice, stripped of its usual cool composure, now sharp and filled with a desperate, reckless fury. He has to donate. Dylan, I'm telling you, you're going to do this today, whether you like it or not. Chloe, are you insane? That was Dylan's voice, laced with panic and rage. Why the hell should I donate my bone marrow to him? Who does he think he is? Bone marrow? For who? For me? Then a calm, authoritative voice, probably a doctor, cut in. Ms. Walker, Mr. Anderson's condition can't be delayed any further. His aplastic anemia has reached a critical stage. Without a bone marrow transplant, his life is in imminent danger. Your brother, Dylan, is the only perfect match we've found. Aplastic anemia, but wasn't that Dylan's illness? My mind went completely blank, my heart hammering against my ribs. All the fragmented memories from my secret account, the notes about being a personal blood bank, suddenly clicked into place in a new and horrifying way. You Andersons better listen to me, Chloe's voice was ice. 3 years ago, you falsified his medical records. You claimed the sick one, Ethan, was healthy, and the healthy one, Dylan, was sick, all to trap me. I played along with your scheme, buying him for $200 million, all for this very moment. To save his life. Every dollar I've given your family, every business deal we've made over the past 3 years, It was all to keep you quiet, to keep your precious Dylan, my living bone marrow bank, healthy. Now, it's time for him to finally be useful. I have evidence of all your financial fraud and business scams. If Dylan doesn't agree to the surgery by sunrise tomorrow, I swear, the entire Anderson family will be wiped off the map in New York, and you will all spend the rest of your lives in prison. Outside the door, the Andersons' cries, curses, and pleas all blurred into a single, meaningless noise. I couldn't hear any of it, so that was it. The person who needed saving, it had always been me. I was the one being used as a blood bank, but I wasn't the one giving life, I was the one who needed it. Chloe didn't marry me to use my blood for Dylan. She married me to use Dylan's marrow for me. Our 3-year, sexless marriage wasn't because she didn't love me, it was because my body couldn't handle it. The regular blood tests weren't to prepare for a transfusion, they were to monitor my own deteriorating health. Her obsessive protection, her insistence that I not overexert myself, the special milk, it was all to keep me alive as long as possible. Every public appearance with Dylan, every scandal, it was all part of her long, complicated plan to secure my only chance at survival. She had carried this twisted truth all by herself for 3 years, walking on eggshells the entire time. And I, the person she was fighting so hard to protect, had accused her with the cruelest words, pushed her away with cold indifference, and even, I had hit her. An overwhelming wave of regret and heartache washed over me. Tears streamed down my face, and my chest ached so much I could barely breathe. I don't know how much time passed before the door opened and Jake walked in. He saw the tears streaming down my face and froze, his own eyes quickly turning red. You know, I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Jake sighed and sat down on the edge of my bed. I heard it all just now. Damn, that Chloe. She's one tough woman, and she's completely devoted to you. She carried all of this on her own, even kept it from her own parents. If you hadn't collapsed, she probably would have kept trying to handle it all by herself. In the end, the Andersons caved. Faced with total ruin, they pushed Dylan onto the operating table. The surgery was a success. I spent a long time recovering in the hospital. Chloe never left my side, but she no longer held me with that desperate strength. She just sat quietly nearby, peeling fruit, reading to me, her eyes filled with a deep, weary caution. It felt like there was an invisible barrier between us that neither of us dared to cross. The day I was discharged, I went back to our villa. The house was immaculate, filled with the scent of sunshine. I walked into the kitchen and saw Chloe standing at the stove, watching a pot of soup simmer. She was thinner than I remembered, her silhouette looking almost unreal in the rising steam. I walked up behind her and gently, tentatively, wrapped my arms around her. Her body went rigid. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling almost imperceptibly. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "I'm so sorry, Chloe." She turned off the stove and slowly turned to face me. We stood so close I could see my own reflection in her eyes. Her eyes were red, but she stubbornly held back her tears. "You saved my life," I said, raising a hand to gently caress her tired face. I spoke each word with absolute sincerity. "From now on, let me be the one to take care of you." She couldn't hold back any longer. The tears finally came, not of sadness, but of relief. They were tears of 3 years of silent suffering, of heartache, of a long and bitter wait finally coming to an end. I clumsily wiped her tears away, my heart overflowing with a love and tenderness I had never felt before. The old me had used tears as a weapon against her. The new me never wanted to see her cry again. Chloe looked up at me, her eyes shining with a broken but brilliant light. She rose onto her toes, tilting her head up to meet mine. This time I didn't pull away. Her soft lips met mine in a gentle, precious kiss. There was no lust in it, no testing, only the profound relief of a long-lost reunion and a tenderness that poured out everything she had held back. 3 years of secrets, 3 years of misunderstanding, 3 years of silent protection, all melted away in that long, deep kiss. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, bathing our embrace in a warm, golden light. I finally understood. I hadn't just lost my memory, I had forgotten how to love her, but that was okay. Starting with this kiss, we had a lifetime to learn all over again.